Hello, everyone, and welcome to the TDWI webinar program. I'm Andrew Miller, and I'll be your moderator. For today's program, we're going to talk about transforming your business through artificial intelligence, the new best practices report from TDWI. And our sponsors today are Alteryx, MongoDB, SAP, and Snowflake. And for our presentations today, we'll hear first from James Kabelis with TDWI. And after Jim speaks, we'll be joined by Paul Warburg with Alteryx, Daniel Hunt with MongoDB, Colin Dover with SAP, and Arun Agarwal with Snowflake for a panel discussion. Before I turn over the time to our speakers, please allow me to go over a few basics for everyone. Today's webinar will be about an hour long, and at the end of their presentations, our speakers will host a question and answer period. So if at any time during these presentations you'd like to submit a question, just use the Ask a Question area on your screen to type in your question. If you have any technical difficulties during the webinar, you can click on the Technical FAQs area and you'll receive technical assistance. And if you'd like a copy of today's presentation, you can locate the resource window to download the PDF. Lastly, we are recording today's event and we'll be emailing you a link to an archived version so you can view the presentation again later if you choose, or if you'd like to share with a colleague. Again, today we're going to be discussing transforming your business through artificial intelligence, and our first speaker is James Kabelis. He's the Senior Director of Research for Data Management at TDWI. Jim is a veteran thought leader, industry analyst, consultant, author, and speaker on analytics and data management. Positions at Futurum Research, Wikibon, Forrester, Kernanalysis, and the Burton Group. He also served as Senior Program Director for Product Marketing for Big Data Analytics with IBM, where he was both a subject matter expert and a strategist on thought leadership and content marketing programs targeted at the data science community. At TDWI, Jim focuses on data management, which encompasses database platforms, data governance, data integration, master data management, data ops pipelines, and more. With that, please welcome Jim, and I'll hand it over to you now.
Thank you, Andrew. Hello, everybody. Hope you're having a good day. Yes, so we have 4 panelists from our sponsors of the latest TDWI Best Practices Report, which was published last week on the topic of transforming your business through artificial intelligence. So I'll be presenting an upfront summary of the key findings from the study, and then each of the panelists will give their thoughts as well on the findings and on the overall topic of how AI powers business transformation in the 21st century. Really, AI is the heart of digital business transformation. This is clear. AI, machine learning, and other data-driven process and decision logic is inside of everything now. It's in every business process management platform, inside of every decision support, decision automation platform, driving next best actions, driving next best decisions, next best processes, everything based on the latest and greatest data and the best analytic models in line to pretty much everything that we do now, both in terms of behind the scenes process automation, as well as decision support in real time to help us run our businesses and our lives as effectively as we possibly can. So when we look at modern enterprises, and if they're relying on SaaS and cloud environments, mobile devices, edge, embedded, Internet of Things, and other application platforms, and AI is the heart and soul of how business is done through all these disparate platforms to enable processes to be automated to a greater degree in real time from the best data and models, to enable increasingly autonomous operation of various components such as logistics and factory floors, once again, based on real-time and continuous loops and feedback to ensure that everything is running smoothly and according to design and the clear business objectives, to enable sensor-driven actuation of cybersecurity and other processes in an ongoing basis, to enable augmented human decisioning. AI is enabling humans to make ever more powerful decisions in everything that we do. So really, AI is the heart of all this. It drives continually updated, contextual, and relevant data-infused predictive intelligence in every process, decision, channel, interaction. So looking at our study, we surveyed data management and analytics professionals worldwide across a wide range of industries, and we asked them a number of key questions. First and foremost, how important is AI as an enabler, platform, or tool contributing to the success of your organization. And really from the findings, it's clear that AI is in fact a key success factor in modern business, and digital business transformation is a key ongoing trend. So everything is being moved to a more digital environment to enable fast, real-time, continuous closed-loop operation across the business and across really your supply chain and your communities. So the respondents indicated that AI is either very important or somewhat important to the success of their organization. Close to three quarters of the respondents indicated that it's very or somewhat important. Only a tiny proportion, around 10%, said it's neither important nor unimportant. And then around the same percentage said it's unimportant or very unimportant. So it's clear there's a considerable consensus behind the fact that AI is key to your digital business transformation success. We asked the respondents to the survey, what are your organization's top priority outcomes for digital business transformation in 2024? And it's clear that AI is addressing a wide range of outcomes that are absolutely essential for modern business. First and foremost, AI, embedded within your processes and decisions, is enabling increased operational efficiency. Close to one half of the respondents indicated that they could select multiple options, of course, indicated that is a key outcome that's being achieved by embedding AI in the business. Not far behind was improving data-driven decision-making at 38%, enhancing the customer experience, accelerating innovation, increasing revenue, enabling greater agility and adaptability, and so forth. These all are outcomes that are being achieved through AI embedded in modern business. And but it's clear what organizations are looking for, first and foremost, to be efficient, to cut costs, and really to control overhead. And a lot of it involves automating more processes to a finer degree. So we asked, is your organization measuring success related to its use of AI? And the findings were shows that enterprises are aware of AI's impact, of the need to measure AI's impact on the business, but not all businesses yet have gone that far to tie AI's impact to bottom line or top line business results. But about 13% indicated that yes, they are measuring AI success in terms of quantifiable impact on revenues or costs. That's 1 in 7. But over 1 in 5, 22% indicated that they're not yet measuring the bottom line impact of AI, but they're evaluating potential metrics of AI's quantifiable impacts on revenue and costs. Fully 23%, so they haven't directly measured AI's quantifiable impact on the bottom line, but they believe that their investments in deployed AI platforms and the like are delivering tangible or qualitative returns. 19% indicated that they have not measured and don't yet see any specific quantifiable or qualitative return from their investments in AI, but they expect those returns to materialize in the next 1 to 2 years. So there's a strong belief and confidence that AI is paying off now or fairly soon. There is generally within business a move towards applying or taking more concrete measurements of AI's impact. So it's very much a work in progress in terms of measuring the bottom line impact of AI on digital business transformation and success. When we asked the respondents, what have been your organization's biggest struggles and challenges with your AI practice in support of digital business transformation? What was clear is that operationalizing AI in production is a key challenge, and operationalizing involves such things as automating to a greater degree both the data ops or data engineering pipeline, automating the machine learning operationalizations pipeline and the like, but also such things as implementing strong governance on AI. That's the data, the models, and so forth that you put into production. So governance is an important operationalization concern, and organizations clearly see as a key challenge that stands between them being able to deploy AI into production applications and to achieve maximum value from their investments in AI. Other key challenges are building AI skills and literacy. Almost an equivalent number of respondents indicated that as a key challenge, training their people, recruiting the right people with the right skills to put AI in, to develop it, to manage it, and to deploy it on an ongoing basis within their organization. Obtaining buy-in within the corporate culture for AI is also a key challenge. There is, as we've indicated in the previous result, there is a strong belief that AI provides a strong potential return on investment. But attaining buy-in within the corporate culture from top to bottom to push AI more completely into all processes and decisions is taking some time. There are legitimate concerns about AI's potential downside impact if the governance is not strong and robust. Governance related to ensuring that the AI that's deployed is free of biases, that it's not in violating privacy, that AI is implemented through, say, large language models is free of hallucinations and other issues. So there's a wide range of challenges in terms of operationalizing AI that organizations know need to be addressed and are investing in new tools and methodologies and skills needed to ensure that they have these capabilities to be able to operationalize AI in their organization. When we asked, is your organization providing governance guardrail tools to mitigate risks with AI in production environments? The results showed that 43% said they are. In terms of data quality controls, and also in terms of security, in terms of anti-bias, privacy protection, mitigating hallucinations with LLMs in cases where organizations are deploying generative AI. But a full 31% have not yet implemented strong AI governance guardrails. But only about 1 1/4 either said that this is not applicable to their organizations or that they don't know. So there's a clear focus increasingly on deploying strong governance as an enabler for organizations to both realize the maximum value from their investment in AI, but also to mitigate the downsides, but also to ensure compliance with a growing range of mandates. So with that, I'm going to hand it back to Andrew. He'll introduce our panelists, and then we'll take it from there.
Terrific. Yeah, thank you so much, Jim, for that great upfront presentation. Just a quick reminder to our audience, if you have a question, you can enter it at any time in the Ask a Question window. We will be answering audience questions in the final portion of our program today. Now it's my pleasure to introduce our panelists for today, first of which is Paul Warburg with Alteryx. Paul helps lead product marketing for Alteryx's AI platform for enterprise analytics, focusing on data prep, generative AI, and analytics insights. He has a background as a data analyst and a PMM for data products, working alongside many of the world's largest corporations and leading data companies. We're also joined today by Daniel Hunt with MongoDB. Dan leads the strategic programs for MongoDB, which focuses on topics like data modernization and artificial intelligence. He has also held roles in technical, product, and sales enablement while at MongoDB. Our next panelist is Colin Dover with SAP. As a part of the SAP Business Technology Platform Center of Excellence, Colin represents a breadth of solutions within the SAP portfolio. He is an evangelist for the SAP digital transformation strategy and vision, as well as a passionate advocate for the value and best practices of corporate customer data strategy and analytics capability maturity. And our final panelist today is Arun Agarwal with Snowflake. Arun is a seasoned leader in the field of AI product marketing, currently leading initiatives at Snowflake. He brings over 15 years of diverse expertise with prior experience at Salesforce and a focus on data and integration. His professional journey spans roles in sales, marketing, manufacturing, and R&D within the consumer products industry. Welcome to all of our panelists, and I'll ask that you all go ahead and turn on your camera for us. And with that, Jim, I will pass it back over to you to begin the panel.
Thank you, Andrew. Good. I think our panelists all have your cameras on. Excellent. So we're going to roll into the questions. You've heard my overall take on the findings from the study, the best practices study. Now we want to hear what you have to say, your thoughts. So let me start with probably the most important question of all. what single factor is most critical for successful implementation of AI for digital business transformation in business? Who's going to start here?
That'll be me, Jim.
Okay, Paul.
Yeah, so thanks. This is a question we think about a lot here at Alteryx, and I'll give the answer that's probably expected from me as the Alteryx guy on the call, but which I do genuinely believe is true, and one of the reasons I work for Alteryx. And that answer is, I think the single most critical factor in the successful implementation of AI is clean and reliable data. It's something people sometimes forget about, but it's the basics. And the reason for that is that the integrity of the house that you build, no matter how beautiful that house is, it all comes down to the quality of the materials that you use to build it. We know that good AI is built on good data. And a lot of organizations, frankly, still do not have good data and don't have good processes for getting to good data. And so when they go to implement AI, that prevents success for several reasons. First, the process could take a long time, and that can be frustrating if you don't have clean data on hand to provide to your AI, and you have to go and generate that every time you want to use it. Second, if you don't clean the data at all, or you don't do it sufficiently, and you try to jump into AI anyways, you can end up just using AI to automate bad decisions faster. And that's not what any of us want to do. You could actually very quickly destroy a company by confidently implementing the wrong decisions simply because you may have failed to get that first step right, which is the good data. And thirdly, because if you do make a few decisions on bad data, you can undermine trust in AI as a whole, and that can make it very hard to get buy-in in the future. We'll talk about that a little bit more later on. So it's really critical when you go into an AI project to know what your data is, to know that you can trust your data, to know that your data is in good shape and that it's ready to go. And if the AI tech that we're all jumping into works as it's supposed to, you'll end up in a good place if you start from that foundation of good data. So that's my answer. I'll stop.
Very good. Other panelists, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think I'm next up in the order. And I would say great
Dan
answer,
Hunt.
Paul.
Dan Hunt from MongoDB, yes. I should say. Go ahead, Dan.
Thank you, James. Yeah, I was just saying that was a great answer, Paul. Data quality is huge. I'll build on that a little bit. And one of the recommendations that we would make is that organizations start to look at building a unified data foundation, and ultimately we'll be able to build an AI stack to build on top of that. You look at historically, artificial intelligence and machine learning have had separate teams and separate data stacks doing that, by virtue of how this space has worked forever. You look at somebody like a data scientist who would go and grab the data, which obviously does need to be of a good quality, or they would need to spend some time taking it out of an operational data store, cleaning it up, analyzing it, curating it, trying to figure out how they're going to build a model, tune that model. And by the time that model ultimately goes into production, it's been many months, right, since that they pulled that data out to go do that work. The advent of LLMs is really changing things, and it's offering an opportunity to bring those historically separate data sources, the operational side and the analytical side, together in a new way. One of the recommendations that we'd make is find a way to start bringing that stuff together. Obviously, MongoDB has a perspective on that. I'll avoid going down that path for now. But it's once you have that unified data stack that you will then be in a great position to start to take advantage of these new capabilities that have been brought on by LLMs. The only thing that I would add to that is, while you're doing that work with the data, you need to be enabling yourselves, your engineers, your executives, with the skills that they will need to succeed in kind of this new future world where we're finding ourselves. There are great courses out there on Coursera for executives, for developers, to go build these skills. That is something that you should very much be doing while you're figuring out the data side of things, so that as that comes together, you're in a great position to succeed.
Very good. Other panelists, Colin and Arun, your thoughts?
I'm going to build on the previous comments. I think to some extent, Jim, I look at this question and think you could almost take out the AI part of it and just say, what factors are critical for successful implementation of any digital business transformation? It really comes back to a lot of the capabilities that the other panelists have already referred to. I think having those organizational outlooks in terms of what outcomes do you actually want to drive to the improvement of, the transformation of, these are as applicable to any other initiative any of us have seen probably in the last 20, 30 years as it is AI. So quality of data, the foundation of data platforms, the advent there of data fabrics that we've seen over the last few years, bringing all of those together, those different competencies, technical and organizational capabilities with the, I'll say the very narrowing focus of the outcome objective is really where I would say we need to start. So that often leads to clear understanding from the business, what is it that they want to transform, why, and to what end. So I think that's probably at risk of being redundant by referring to too many of the other previous answers. I'll leave it there.
It tends to happen when we have four very authoritative people on the panel. So that was Colin Dover with SAP. Arun Agarwal from Snowflake, your thoughts?
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity, Jim. Welcome, everybody. I would say the way I think about business in the standard 3P formula, so product, process, people, and the panelists talked about product and processes. In my mind, one of the most important aspects of implementation of AI for enterprises is thinking about people. We are changing how people do their work. At the same time, we are changing how teams use technology. And if you think about AI technology in general, it's really hard to prove ROI at this point. You have to really think about the cost aspect of implementing AI. So a lot of the projects may not follow the traditional path that people are used to. So changing that mind shift and changing that mind shift quickly in terms of organizational culture, change management, can be a really important aspect of being successful and implementing this technology.
Okay, great. Move to the next question. What are the top enterprise priorities for digital business transformation? Each of you is a solution provider. So if you could give us your thoughts based on what you're observing among your customers, what are they trying to achieve most fundamentally in terms of improving the business with their AI-driven digital business transformation initiatives? Who wants to start here?
I believe that's Daniel that's going to start this time.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. So what are your top enterprise priorities for digital business transformation? I think what we're starting to see is that to do AI, to do generative AI in a cost-effective way, the industry seems to be coalescing around the idea of building a RAG architecture. So many advantages to doing that. The idea with a RAG architecture in very simple terms is that you're optimizing the input, what you might think of historically as a query, right? The questions that you're asking of a system. Building a RAG architecture is something that will very much help to optimize the output, the response that you get from that system. That's critical, right? When you are looking to bring AI into the organization, you want to find a way to optimize it to your use case. You want to find a way to do that in a way that leverages your data, which is your competitive differentiator and something that you should be looking to really build this business around, kind of build in a sustainable way that competitive differentiation using that data. And you need to do that in a way that protects the proprietary and the confidential nature of the data. The RAG architecture is something that can be used to optimize, again, how you pull these various sources, these various systems together to get outputs, the responses from the AI models in a way that makes it just even more useful to your business. So on top of, I talked earlier about unifying your data sources, kind of getting these things at the point of your operational data, your customer data, I'd say that next step is really building that RAG architecture.
Right, and I should point out that RAG, for those in the audience who may not be familiar with that fairly new acronym, it's Retrieval Augmented Generation. It's a set of capabilities that these panelists know quite well. But I'm going to move on to the rest of the panelists. So what are your thoughts? What are you seeing among enterprises in terms of priority projects or initiatives along the lines of what Dan has discussed to enable their success in digital business transformation with AI? Colin, are you there?
Yes, yeah, happy to go. So I think to build on Dan's comments there, there's again the issue of how do we make data more usable, more useful, and more supportive of, as I mentioned previously, the outcome. So I think those are often, from an SAP perspective, our customers, are driven by those objectives. How do we operationalize, productize, monetize data more effectively, maybe? What is it that we can use AI for in terms of driving, as the survey there showed, the efficiencies? What opportunities are there for improving, streamlining processes? How do we get to the answers faster than we've done historically? And how do we help drive the bottom or the top line accordingly? So I think those all sort of end up being facets of what become the same set of business transformation objectives. One that I've heard most recently is this notion of the time machine aspect that AI represents. How can it help us to really shave hours, not just minutes, but hours and potentially days and months out of the processes and the activities that we all engage in within our various enterprises? And as a measurable outcome, what does that allow us to do alternatively to maybe some of the more traditional pursuits that we have? So I think that's an interesting one. And the point a couple of customers have made to me along those lines is all of the most successful companies are the ones who have managed who have identified how to shave time out of their core business and direct that time and resource elsewhere. So I think that's an interesting emerging one that we see.
Great. Arun, your thoughts?
Yeah, completely agree with the panel. I always think about any type of business transformation or digital transformation in terms of the core reason why we are doing it. And it always boils down to a couple of different things. You want to grow your revenue and you want to get faster to market. So, from our perspective, Snowflake users are are constantly talking about three things. The first one is improving their customer experience. So this is all about how do you make customer experience more personal? How do you use your structured data like point of sale data and unstructured data like online reviews and sentiment analysis? How do you help your customer service teams to better serve their customers? All of that is one aspect of what they want. The second one is all about staying ahead of competition, right? This means you want to open up your data, the rich data that you have as an enterprise, to everybody in the organization in a controlled manner. So that way, everybody can make data-driven decisions in a more self-serving fashion. And then the third one is all about improving operational efficiency that Colin just referred to. So, this is where you'll see things like chatbots and search solutions, ways to discover and surface insights quickly by using automation, cloud computing, things like that. This, as we just discussed, is rooted in a strong data foundation to what Dan was mentioning earlier. So, making sure your data is clean, packaged securely to everyone at all levels of organization is going to be critical to drive these business transformations easily, successfully, safely, to get you to market faster.
Very good. Paul, your thoughts?
Yeah, great answers here. Maybe I'll just kind of underline some of the answers that have already been given with some of the data actually from the best practices report that I found interesting. Kind of reading through that, interestingly enough, we did see that the top enterprise priority by far was increasing operational efficiency. And the number two was improving data-driven decision-making. I think those had like 45% and 38% of responses respectively, which is quite high. If you think about those both together, you see that the top enterprises are really focused on cost savings and being more efficient with what they have. And that's a theme that you also see throughout all the other top enterprise priorities as well, with the exception of, increasing revenue, which was, I think, 25% of people responded, and expanding market reach, which was like 12%. So you see enterprises they're not uninterested in growing revenue or market reach, but the main thing they're focused on with the digital business transformation in particular is all that back-end stuff. How can we build a machine that is much more lean, much more mean, much more cost efficient, and better at what it does? And how do we get better at doing the things that we're already doing? So I found that a little bit insightful. I see a lot of AI technologies, they come out and they are trying to sell people on net new capabilities, new things that they can do for the first time. But it seems to be that that's not what people are primarily thinking about right now. The first thing they want to do is they want to optimize the things that they're already good at. And I think that's a good instinct, because if you think about it, that's the most likely thing to lead to dependable value for an organization, because we're still in this pioneering stage of AI where we're figuring out what the long-term capabilities of AI are going to be. So if we want to get dependable value, what are the things we're doing right now, and how do we use AI to optimize those? So that's my thoughts on that.
Very good. Move to the next question. We've discussed the priority business outcomes to be achieved through digital business transformation. What are the investments? What are the most important AI technologies in which enterprises should be investing to drive digital business transformation? Colin, I'll start with you. Your thoughts?
Okay. Well, there's a lot potentially. I mean, just the answers we've given already touch on governance technologies, and you know, we're sort of alluding here to everything from our analytics interfaces, you know, the threading together of data fabrics. No one's talked about lake houses yet, but you know, I think the assumption has to be that we're talking about a very broad set of technological capabilities and requirements that complement those organizational capabilities we mentioned a little bit earlier. So we're seeing, certainly through the SAP lens, our customers, they're focusing on governance, as was just touched on. We are seeing a lot of interest in technologies that allow the customer to keep the data where it persists today and where it has been historically. How do we stitch that together and eliminate the requirement for movement of data on a massive scale? So I think there's a lot of interesting architectural side effects, if you like, that are beneficial that the AI discussion is driving. How do we get the most out of technologies we have invested in historically? How do we complement those with new technologies where necessary? And essentially, it all comes down to how can we quickly and in a trusted way get to the data that, again, supports the highest value outcomes. So I think that, you know, that linkage we see time and time again. Obviously, you've got and we just finished our Sapphire event here in Florida last week. Tens of thousands of SAP customers being bombarded with in every presentation, every keynote, whether from a customer or from us, the innovations that we're driving and taking to market around AI, whether that's a co-pilot or whether it's a hub approach to the way that AI applications can be built and deployed in the architecture. So, you know, we're seeing customers who are bolting on, they're building out, and they're adding to their landscape to supplement, as I say, those historical capabilities with the new and emergent AI ones. So I think, you know, it's a broad answer. I apologize, Jim. You know, would like to be a little more specific, but I think it's a great opportunity for all organizations to take stock of the technologies that are in place now and those ones that are going to be part of an AI architecture moving forward, or an AI supporting architecture moving forward. So it really does raise a lot of questions, and you know, I think that again, if we maintain sight of the outcome, the answers should be a little easier to find.
Very good. Arun, your thoughts?
Yeah. So, you know, the way I think about it is we want to make AI easy, efficient, and trusted. You know, in today's world, customers have petabytes and zettabytes of data, you know, millions of rows and columns, dynamic data, tens of thousands of documents, and they want to surface all of this to make use of their data to act on it, right? So I'll make it a little bit more tangible. You know, obviously there are plenty of investments in chatbots, text-to-code generation, language processing, computer vision, etc. But the two that we are seeing gaining a lot of momentum is Gen AI, which I'm sure everybody in the audience is aware of. So, you know, thinking about large language models to create content, generate code, coming up with new ideas for various business functions has become really an interesting investment for enterprises. And then the other one is AI-powered analytics and business intelligence. So, you know, how do you help enterprises uncover valuable insights, the patterns, the trends, those types of things, and make those informed decisions very quickly so that they can stay ahead of the competition. So from my perspective, it's all about prioritizing AI tech based on specific business needs and the needs of your customer. And most importantly, how can you execute AI safely within your organization are some of the things that we are seeing.
Very good. Paul, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think this is a super interesting question. What AI technology should we be investing in? And I actually wanted to start with a quick analogy, because when I think of AI, it's a world-changing technology, but it's certainly not the first world-changing technology. And one way to predict the future is with the past. So just a brief anecdote on the automobile industry, and I promise a very relevant point here as far as AI goes. So if we ask this question like 100 years ago, what automobile technologies should we be investing in to help our company? A lot of people would be thinking in terms of finished vehicles. Which automobile manufacturer is going to build the best truck or car, et cetera, that creates the best machinery for the jobs that I need to do today. What they didn't realize was that there were a lot of jobs that they couldn't even fathom that an automobile could do. That's understandable. And a lot of people also didn't know that in 1914, there were over 150 different gasoline truck manufacturers, all competing to beat the market. And of course, now we know we've only heard of a couple of those because almost all of them failed. Only a few of them actually ended up surviving. And everyone who invested in those companies or relied on those technologies ended up losing their shirts. But what did very, very well during that time period were the people investing in the technologies that were the building blocks for the automotive industry as a whole. So these were people doing things like mining and refining iron ore, figuring out supply chains for oil and gasoline, because whatever the winning automobile technology was, that might have been impossible to predict, but anybody could predict, if they sat back and thought about it, that all those cars are going to require iron, copper, oil, as well as roads, parking garages, storage, things like that. So the question, going back to AI, that I like to think about when it comes to AI is we are still in those very early pioneering stages. Nobody really knows what's going to happen in 10 years. Really, anything could happen. But what is the oil of the AI industry that we can be investing in and optimizing for? What's that thing that's going to be required for every organization to be good at, regardless of what direction AI goes? And how do we invest technologically in that? And I would say the oil of the AI industry is clean data. It's useful data. Whatever AI can do in 1 year or 10 years, the bulk of the benefits are going to go to the enterprises that are the best at harvesting and cleaning and using data. So the most important AI technologies enterprises should be investing in are things that help them do that. Actually, it's the technologies of yesterday, like cloud data warehouses, ETL and ELT tools, data automation tools, which a lot of organizations still haven't mastered. We know, for example, today a lot of organizations are still using spreadsheets as a database, and we all know that spreadsheets aren't a database. And there's a lot of examples of technologies that still haven't been adopted. And if organizations kind of try to skip those tools and jump straight into AI, they're going to run into those problems that we spoke about earlier. But if people get that foundation right, once the more mature solutions come into being, they'll actually have a good foundation to build on. And rather than being a pioneer that kind of goes in the wilderness and gets arrows in their back, they can travel down the road that somebody else has built and really grab market share when things are ready for them. Those are my thoughts.
And Dan, sure, thank you. Dan, what's your take on this topic?
Yeah, James, so the question is the most important AI technologies, right?
Right.
Look, this is something that one of the areas we're seeing our customers struggling with the most is what AI technologies, right? And I think Paul was getting at this as well with his answer. I mean, take a step out. The sheer difficulty of choice that exists in a landscape as complicated as artificial intelligence, where we are seeing startups coming out on what feels like a daily basis. You see new claims changing. You see, nobody had heard of a large language model a year and a half ago, and look how much that has changed the game. And what we've got today with generative AI, right? This is an area that everybody is struggling. So let's acknowledge that up front. We've heard some great perspectives on here. I keep harping on that unified data model. You want your AI data at the point of interaction with the customer, right? So again, you want to be looking at that, look at capabilities. We talked about RAG architectures. We haven't talked too much about vector databases. This idea, and this gets to one of the questions that I saw we'll probably get to in a little bit about, how do I bring these systems together? in a way that will protect the privacy, the confidentiality, the proprietary nature of this data, start looking at the capabilities that can be provided by a vector database. I'm going to avoid going down the product side of that too much, but I would say generally you want to be looking at capabilities, and this is true of everything, AI and elsewhere. Look at capabilities that you think are going to support for any use case, right? Because what you look to tackle early on today, tomorrow, your world could look very different a year from now, 2 years from now, right? So you want to be picking partners, you want to be picking capabilities that will support any use case in the future. You want to be finding partners who can support any model, right? You look at how much the spaces of models have changed over the past couple of years. Find something that will help you to support, hey, if I want to change my model or if I want to bring in a new model in the future, what's going to help me to do that? You want to be working with partners and technologies that can support any cloud or no cloud or every cloud simultaneously, right? That open nature, being able to say, hey, there are capabilities over here, there might be other capabilities over there. How do I do this in a way that's not going to lock me into a particular vendor in perpetuity? So again, you want to be looking at that openness at the cloud side as well as the capability side. And ultimately, you want to be looking for technologies that can support any data type, right? And I think we heard this, came up with the spreadsheets comment. I think, Paul, that was you as well. Look, your data today is not necessarily what your data is going to be tomorrow. It's not necessarily what your data is going to be a year from now. So you really do want to be picking partners. You want to be picking capabilities that will support your data needs today, your data needs for the future. And that can be easier said than done. But I think that kind of stepping out of the answer, that openness is something you very much want to be aiming for.
Very good. Move on to the next question. What are enterprises' biggest challenges when using AI for digital business transformation, and how should they address those challenges in order to achieve their objectives? So Arun, let's start with you. Your thoughts?
Yeah, that's a really loaded question, I feel. There are several challenges that enterprises are feeling today in terms of AI, everything that Dan, Paul, and Colin mentioned in terms of how overwhelming this topic can be. I would say the three main things that we think about is data quality and management. We talked about this topic. It's all about how do we ensure proper collection of data? How do we clean the data properly? How do we transform it? How do we enrich it, store it, and maintain highest quality data? Because it's garbage in, garbage out if we don't take care of the data that goes into the AI models. Then comes the idea of, okay, you have clean data, managed data. How do you bring data into AI, and how do you bring AI into production? So this is where you have to think about your tech stack. How do you integrate disparate legacy systems, maybe using API-based solutions or middleware? You have to think about managed AI services and cloud platform for scalability to reduce your costs. You have to address privacy, security, governance, compliance concerns. And you also have to think about, what is your strategy in terms of model training and deployment? So for example, you may choose a large model that works really well for you and it's fairly accurate, but it can also be expensive versus thinking about maybe a smaller model that can be fine-tuned and perform just as well as large models. And then of course we talked about the talent and skill gap. So you have to think about, should you be investing into training or partnerships, or should you be looking at more fully managed services that are out there? So those are all the things that will help you bring AI into production. And then the last piece of the challenge would be the cost and ROI piece that I was mentioning earlier. So, you really have to understand, how do you think about the cost of the technology, the cost of the talent, and the cost of infrastructure, the GPUs and the CPUs that you need to perform this type of execution. On top of that, you have to think about, what is my ROI, which a lot of people are asking about. And that's a little bit complex in AI to calculate. So just thinking about how do you address this challenge? Maybe you start small to fully understand how you get charged for using AI, what type of models lead to what type of top and bottom line for you. And then once you prove the value, then you can start to scale your AI into larger production. So those are the things that I would say are challenges and potential solutions.
Very good. Paul, your thoughts?
Yeah, great answer, Arun. Thanks for that. So one of the enterprise's biggest challenges in using AI for digital business transformation, looking at the survey and the report, the three biggest challenges that were cited were operationalizing AI, obtaining buy-in for AI, and securing budget for AI. Sorry. And as I thought of kind of those three, I think they actually point to the same underlying issue, which in my opinion is the lack of trust in AI, which prevents people from buying into it. That prevents people from operationalizing it, and it also, prevents people up top from wanting to provide budget for it. So the biggest challenges to adopting AI at scale are buy-in and trust, and I think that's going to continue to be a theme we see for a long time. And that's not a technological challenge; it's a psychological one. For example, to kind of explain, I think why this is, we've all seen those examples of ChatGPT where you can easily trick the system and get incorrect or nonsensical answers. So the system itself is very useful, but in a very small percentage of use cases, it gets things so wrong that it's just laughable. And so when it comes to adopting something like that at scale, it becomes scary because we know if we automate this, how do we know we're getting the right answers? How do we know we aren't getting important things fundamentally wrong? So maybe we use it and we trust it for some small use cases, but we are afraid of just letting it go and do its own thing. Like for me, I know it's prevented me from fully trusting AI to do important tasks. I can use it to expedite things here or there, but I just don't trust it enough to stand it up and rely on it on its own. And that problem gets worse the higher up in an organization you get often. So how do we address that? I think first we need visibility into not just the output of the AI, but the inputs and the reasoning behind what it's doing. So AI can't be a black box. It needs to be explainable. We need to be able to see what's going on. And what also might be useful is segmenting our usage of AI, not using it right now to try to automate end-to-end processes, but maybe to help with one system and one process at a time, and build confidence that it can do that one thing correctly, and then have the confidence to layer on another step as well. And as we do that, we can get small wins and build trust in AI over time. And that will help get more buy-in and more budget in the long term, I think.
Very good. Dan, can you give us your thoughts? Dan Hunt.
Yeah, biggest challenges. Look, I think a useful framing device for this, if you're an executive looking at this space, is the framing convention of PPT, people, process, and technology. One of the areas that we're seeing people struggle is you've got these legacy dynamics where, and we talked a little bit about this earlier, right? AI is not a new concept, right? Machine learning's been around for decades. It's changed dramatically in the past couple of years, but that doesn't mean organizations, enterprises haven't been going down this space. And you've got this legacy from a people and process standpoint of having these siloed teams. And not to keep harping on the siloed data, let's look at the team side of things. And the idea that maybe you've got your data scientists over here, you've got your engineers and developers on the other side. The business executives can exist somewhere around this. And what the most advanced customers we are seeing do to succeed in this space is finding a way to break down the legacy silos, the walls that have existed between these teams, the processes that they've developed, by function of how the space has changed over the past couple of years, taking a step back to say, how can we do this more effectively? How do we get these teams together so that they are rowing in the same direction, so that the various skills we have are not producing science experiments on the one hand that don't go anywhere, or not ultimately able to take these incredible ideas that might exist on the business side, but without the right technical framing, not being able to put them into production. When it comes to machine learning, to artificial intelligence, the coaching there, my suggestion would be take a step back, figure out how you can kind of start unifying these teams to start rowing in the same direction, and then do this in a way that will not create technical debt for yourself down the line, again, as you're looking to kind of pull all this stuff together.
Great. Colin, your thoughts?
Yeah, so I think both Paul and Dan just most recently there brought up a couple of points that I would start with. I think the Interestingly, Paul talked about the new oil concept, data as oil, and it's interesting. I think we first heard that quote from Clive Humby back in 2006, thereabouts. So, 18 years later, we're still talking about data as a new oil, and the analogy of what refining does data need to go through in order to, come out the other end as a usable resource. And I think in many ways that is still the issue here, that if we look at hallucinations and the various reports of AI not necessarily performing in the way that we would expect, not building the trust that we need as a user community, I think a lot of that really comes back to the core problem of data quality. And then, as Dan touched on, this is a people process technology conversation. How do you ensure that the technology is supportive of the processes? How do you ensure that the people are trusting what they're seeing as part of that process? And we've got decades as users in all organizations of doing things habitually with data that we know works. We know what we expect to see. We know how we expect to see it, and more importantly, we know what to do with it and how to use it once we do get it. And I think that explainability of the AI environment, the trust that we start to engender with those AI systems, however complex or simple they are in nature, and however diverse the data sources are that lay behind them or they feed from are, I think it really all does come down to that human fundamental issue of trust. Can I trust it? Is it showing me what I expect it to? And if it's not showing me what I expect it to, can I trust the fact that it's an alternative presentation of something useful? So I think that's really an issue. One of the things I realize as I'm listening to the other panelists is we're all very good at describing these broad brush approaches to what is a very broad and deep problem. And I think, my one caution would be to just take away from all of our comments. We're not necessarily saying boil the ocean of these problems. There is a narrow focus that should be taken. And I think to the point that Dan made, the people, process, and the technology, look at that in a way that reflects one problem that you see as both the thorniest or the one with the greatest opportunity to transform, and tackle that in a very complete and thorough way. And I think that's the best advice I could offer, back to the PPT point that Dan made, and then also to that idea of refinement of data for an intended purpose that Paul made. So get specific, think about the disciplines needed to make it usable, understand in measurable terms what you want the outcome to be for that application of AI, and also be very aware of the potential pitfalls and the disadvantages of using AI, so that when you do see the erroneous numbers, when it does hallucinate, if it hallucinates, you're very clear about why it's doing that and where to identify and solve the problem. One final thing that really talks about the organizational change management. I speak to a lot of customers about ethics, biases, as you mentioned, Jim. How do they zero those out? How do they recognize useful biases that actually day-to-day help them perform well, in addition to those that are undesirable and they want to eliminate? And a bias could simply be confirmation bias in the data, in the way that it's used to reinforce a perception that already exists amongst senior leadership, but doesn't necessarily help in illuminating a path to a different way or better way of doing things. So, biases are a fairly tangled and complex discussion in themselves, and they lead into, as I say, the ethical implications and legislation and regulatory pressures that we're all trying to address. And just one other point there. Regulation is a topic that I keep getting asked about in meetings. And one of the things that I keep saying to our customers, certainly in North America, is look overseas, look at what's happening in Europe, look at what sort of guidance is being offered there as a starting point, and think about what regulation you can anticipate being asked to adhere to, what standards you could expect to be asked to meet over time. And if they don't exist yet, just think about what you potentially could do as a class-leading organization to build those into your approaches to AI and its adoption. So sorry, long answer, Jim, but a lot of thoughts were triggered by Dan Paul's and Arun's comments.
That was great, Colin. Well, thank you, panelists. This was a great discussion. I'm going to hand it now to Andrew because we have questions coming from the audience. So for our panelists. So Andrew, take it away.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you all for that great discussion. That was fantastic. We do have several questions from the audience members. We won't get to all of these, unfortunately, with our time constraints here. But Paul, we'll start with you on this question before moving to the others. You talked about ways to increase trust in your data and AI across organization. There's a question that I want to pose to you from Mariana, sorry. She says, our company has had concerns about the confidentiality of the information used as inputs. How can we make sure our prompts will not be shared with other people or companies?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think this all comes down to the specific vendor that you're using to create your prompts and the governance and the privacy guardrails that they implement. You know, I know a lot of companies don't want to use ChatGPT for that exact reason, because they know that their private data will get used potentially in models that then can be accessed by other companies when they input their prompts. And so if you have proprietary things, you know, individual companies for individual tasks, and you expect high quality governance from them and controls and privacy, that's the best way you can get that. And that ultimately comes down to a good selection of the vendors that you choose to trust with your data and implementing your AI strategy. Other than that, I don't have a whole lot more to say, though, unfortunately.
Not a problem. Thank you for the answer. Really appreciate it. Colin, we'll go to you for this next one. So Colin, is a focus on increased operational efficiency an unexpected or surprising top priority since AI has so much potential to support?
I lost the end of that, Andrew.
Apology, let me try that one more time. Is a focus on increased operational efficiency an unexpected or surprising top priority since AI has so much potential to support innovations?
I'm going to say short answer, yes, to some extent. I think certainly at SAP, an awful lot of our customers over the last 40, 50 years have been focused on operational efficiency. It's obviously a desirable, I'd say, outcome in most technological conversations or innovation discussions. I think one thing that's interesting, though, is can there be many more opportunities left, broadly speaking, to increase operational efficiency? I see that as a data point, and it just makes me think, maybe a little cynically, has all of the other effort not really contributed to operational efficiency? So I think it's definitely part of a mix that I would expect to see. Would I expect it to be number one? Possibly not. With all of the promise that we've heard over the last 12 to 18 months, since November of 22, when the world woke up to LLMs and ChatGPT, for instance, I think the innovation and the potential for dramatic innovation, transformative innovation, is the one that I feel has been the high point of the discussion, and maybe efficiency is a byproduct of that. So yeah, a little bit surprising, and I think that could be more of a reflection of the desire to still deliver on traditional use cases and objectives that have been there in the past and maybe haven't been hit fully in the way that they were expected to.
All right, fantastic, terrific. Thank you very much there. Arun, we'll go to you for the next question here. This person said that Snowflake just wrapped up its summit last week and asked if you could share some key AI announcements regarding that.
Yeah, thank you for that question. We just wrapped up a summit last week, more than 20,000 people in San Francisco for a whole week talking about AI and other technologies that we offer. It was super energizing. Again, going back to what we are thinking at Snowflake, we want to make AI efficient, easy, and trusted for all. So I think of it in 3 layers, the announcements that we made. At the bottom, we have models, so you can access foundational models, you can access task-specific models, embedding models, you can fine-tune your own model. All of that is the announcement that went out. In addition to that, we also want to allow our users to chat with their data, whether it's structured data or unstructured data. So for structured data, we announced Cortex Analyst, which is powered by Meta's Llama 3 and Mistral large model. And for unstructured data, such as documents, you can use Cortex Search. And then the top layer of this announcement was we also want to make sure that we empower more teams to use AI safely. So we have a no-code AI development with Snowflake AI and ML Studio. All of this is with the goal of making AI available to everyone to be able to make use of it easily, efficiently, and with deep trust.
All right, terrific. Thank you for sharing. And Dan, last but not least, we also had a question regarding a recent announcement from MongoDB, the MongoDB AI Applications Program. Would you mind sharing more about that, please?
Yeah, look, I'll try to go quick. I mentioned earlier that one of the areas we are seeing and hearing our customers struggling the most is answering the question, where do we begin, right? How do we take the right steps to set ourselves up for success? Who are the right partners with whom we should be interacting and building our AI future with? So to that end, we've announced what we're calling the MongoDB AI Applications Program, or MAP for short. The idea is that we are taking the best practices that we've curated from working with thousands of different customers doing the most demanding type work in this space. And we are building a series of blueprints that are industry agnostic, steps that people can take. We are building a small set of curated partners to grow over time, guaranteed to work, guaranteed to scale, guaranteed for the security considerations to come together. And basically bringing people together to say, hey, how do we get together? How do we unify our data stack? How do we build that AI stack, that RAG architecture on top? And how do we get those first applications into production and ultimately building services into this thing? So the folks that come into MAP would exit with those first meaningful AI applications ready to go, ready to scale, and ready to take on the future. So there's the very quick plug for that and answer.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. I know that we're running out of time here for everyone, so appreciate you being slightly concise on that one. And this does bring us to the end of our time today, so please allow me to thank all of our speakers. We did, of course, hear from Jim Kobielus with TDWI, Paul Warburg with Alteryx, Daniel Hunt with MongoDB, Colin Dover with SAP, and Arun Agarwal with Snowflake. Would also like to thank once again Alteryx, MongoDB, SAP, and Snowflake for sponsoring today's webinar, as well as this best practices report. And please remember that we did record today's webinar, and we'll be emailing you a link to an archived version of the presentation. And if you'd like a copy of today's presentation, you can locate the resource window to download the PDF. Finally, I'd like to remind you that TDWI hosts in-person educational events each quarter. Our next one is in San Diego on August 4th through the 9th, Transform 2024, as well as our Modern Data Leaders Summit on Data Governance within that August 5th through 7th. And you can check your post-webinar communications for a unique discount code and more information. And lastly, I'd like to say thank you all for attending today's event. This does conclude the webinar. Take care.